it won't be fresh news by the time this podcast comes out, but it's fresh news to us in this moment. Let me just say, and I don't know how you feel about this, Bontemps, but I don't want a 2-2 game 5 when the series is 2-2 to be decided by a loose ball foul 70 feet from the team's basket. Having said that, a foul is a foul. And if I was a Detroit Pistons fan, I would be breathing fire about the way that the Pistons-Cavs Game 5 ended on Wednesday night with a non-call. The last 2-minute report that just came out not only said that that was the correct non-call, but that every call made by the officials in the last 2 minutes and overtime were correct calls. So I don't know what to say, but it was a high stakes basketball game that saw a lot of drama, and the Cavs had their first road win of the postseason. And if I was a Pistons fan, I would not be satisfied.
Yeah, I mean, there's two different conversations to have about this game, right? One is that the Pistons absolutely choked it away and had a horrible final 3 minutes of regulation and were not much better in overtime. And, Cavs managed to come back and win the game. The other conversation to have is this was very obviously a foul. I'm at the combine. There were 100 people at the bar. I was sitting with Bobby Marks watching the game at. Every person at the bar said, "Oh my God, how did they not call that foul?" It was very obvious. And look, I covered an NCAA tournament game 15 years ago between Pitt and Butler. Pitt was the number 1 team, I think, in the tournament. And they were playing Butler. It's the second year in a row Butler would go on to play in the national title game in D.C. And Matt Howard got fouled 93 feet from the basket after grabbing a free throw miss. And he flung the ball down court, and they called a foul because he got grabbed by the guy in Pitt. And it was a foul. And it was not great that the game was ended on a free throw at the buzzer rather than going to overtime, but a foul was committed. And look, the NBA can do whatever they want with the last 2-minute report, and they can do whatever they want with a judgment call and say that Tony Brothers didn't eat his whistle and obviously not call a foul that the whole world could see. And yeah, it would have, in a different way, it would have been unsatisfying. But we talk a lot about the refs, and ironically, we talk about JB Bickerstaff likes to complain about the refs more than he needs to most of the time, as we have talked about in the past. This is one time where you can pretty definitively say Tony Brothers cost Detroit the game, because that foul would have been called with less than a second to go. If maybe Ausar Thompson misses both free throws, but at least we would have had a chance to do it. And by not calling that, you eliminate the chance for Detroit to win the game right there. And when that game went to overtime, I was pretty confident Cleveland was going to go on and win the game. It did. And again, you can say, well, the Pistons shouldn't have blown that lead. Oh, totally true. Pistons were terrible late. Cade Cunningham had bad turnovers again. They had bad process. They missed open shots. All that is true. At the end of the day, though, if that foul is called, it's 3-2 Detroit going to game 6. And I don't think anybody is sitting here saying, oh, man, they shouldn't have called that foul. They would have said, yeah, Jared Allen ran him over and tripped him, and the way the game ended, and everyone would have moved on. But, that's the way it goes sometimes, and we'll see if the Pistons can respond in game 6.
I mean, this is a case of who you're going to believe, the last 2-minute report or your lying eyes.
Right.
They included a video link like they always do with every play in the last 2-minute report. I haven't clicked on it. I don't know if they doctored the footage, but clearly it was a foul now. And I'll be honest with you, I tuned in to JB Bickerstaff's post-game press conference expecting just belligerent. I expect, because he can breathe fire. He was very matter of fact about it. He said, it was a foul. It wasn't called. That's tough. He didn't rant and rave. I thought he was going to. And having said all that, the Pistons didn't deserve to be bailed out on a call. It would have been a fair ending because it was a foul. It would not have been a just ending. That was a game the Pistons deserved to lose because of the way they completely melted down in the fourth quarter. The offense went just absolutely kaput. Jalen Duren was reduced to being a cheerleader. Honestly, the most impressive thing that Jalen Duren did last night was face the media post-game. We've seen a lot of players, a lot of young players in that kind of situation find a way to avoid the media. I'll give him credit for
Victor
standing up.
Wembanyama, there was nothing preventing him from facing the media after he got ejected, except for he just didn't do it.
Right. And so I would, and I'm being dead serious. I'll give Jalen Duren credit for standing up and being accountable when it's been a really rough go and he got the plug pulled on him for all of the fourth quarter and overtime. But the fact that the guy was supposed to be Cade Cunningham's co-star is a complete non-factor in this series is a massive concern now and a real complication this summer. So again, the Pistons absolutely earned a loss, but if the thing's called the way it should be called, they should have been bailed out by a bonehead foul on Jared Allen.
The only other thing I'll say too is the 2 points to Cleveland scored before that were on a foul on Tobias Harris that Tony Brothers called on an Evan Mobley drive, where there was about as much contact as there was on this Asar Thompson play with Jared Allen, and Evan Mobley didn't even lose the ball on the play. So again, if you're a Detroit Pistons fan, you're watching the last minute of the game, same end of the court, you would say, okay, you kind of hit Evan Mobley and you call a foul there. You knock over another guy, you don't call a foul there. I, again, do not think Detroit should have been bailed out. But.
Well, at least Evan Mobley is driving to the basket, like, in a scoring play. It's
Sure.
I think it's I don't think it's quite apples to apples. But look, the Cavs were, ESPN Analytics said it was 97% the Pistons to win. I don't know about that. Let's just say it's 1 in 20, something like that.
That would be 95%. So
whatever.
Sure.
It was a rare to be down 9 on the road with less than 3 minutes to go.
It's hard to win that game and it's hard to lose that game.
Right. Mm-hmm. And by the way, to be down 9 and actually have a shot to win, that's really hard because you're down, you're down 3 possessions and, you would make that up and have a chance to win. That was the crazy set of circumstances. Whenever that happens, you need the comeback team needs to play very well, which the Cavs did. Evan Mobley arguably made the biggest shot of his career. He made a 3-pointer from the top of the key without hesitation in a vital moment. That was a big thing for him.
Right after a big-time drive and dunk by him.
Yes, and he also had a defensive play where he got a block, I think, in that sequence. So you have that, and then you have, Donovan Mitchell. He made a driving basket. He had been, I think, 0 for 8 in the second half, and he made a driving basket. Jared Allen had a putback. James Harden, I think, got to the foul line. But the point is, everybody in the Cavs side had a pathway or had a piece of it. On the Detroit side, there were mistakes. Tobias Harris missed a wide open shot. Danis Jenkins missed a wide open shot. Karis LeVert had the last possession for the Pistons. Went in, looked like he tried to get fouled, ended up falling on his back and throwing up an air ball. It takes all of those things plus the call or non-call to come back from 9 points down with 2.5 minutes left. And so it's a conglomeration of all of them. Let's talk about what's now going to happen in this series, because this will be coming out Friday. Friday night is Game 6. Okay, the home team, the Cavs have been undefeated at home in this postseason. And let's just be clear. The Pistons are 6-6 in the playoffs. The Cavs are 7-5. Neither of these teams is
It's been about as uninspiring a run to the conference finals for either team as you could possibly have.
Well, for two teams that are top 4 seeds, So
that's why I'd say it's uninspiring. Neither team has impressed in either round.
Right. So let's just be clear that both these teams are flawed, and I think this series could still go any which way. Okay? But the Pistons have clearly lost 3 games in a row. So JB Bickerstaff, guys, has a couple of potential choices in front of him. Jalen Duren is giving him very little. And he played 25 minutes in Game 5. In those 25 minutes, he was minus 16 in a game that went to overtime. And he didn't play in overtime. So
he didn't play in the fourth quarter. He got DeAndre Ayton.
He did. I think he actually came in for a rebound on
he
a
did not
free
play
throw.
1 second in the fourth quarter. He was going to come in, and then he didn't.
He came in and stood at the free throw line, and they made the free throw, and they called time. That was the one time he was on the court.
So anyway, here are his numbers in the series. He is during the regular season, a 20 and 10 guy. He is shooting under 50%, 46%. He shot over 65% in the regular season, averaging just 6 rebounds, half of what he averaged. But more than any of his statistics, which are down obviously because his minutes are down, he's getting beat backdoor. He's taking the wrong angles. He's getting beat for rebounds. And the other thing is that when JB Bickerstaff has played Paul Reed, B-ball Paul, he's been terrific. Paul Reed in 41 minutes in 3 games, he's 15 of 20 from the field, and has had huge impact on energy plays. And to the point where JB Bickerstaff was asked, like, how come you don't play Paul Reed? How come you haven't been playing Paul Reed more? And he said that he thought that Paul plays better when he comes in and the Pistons are down because his energy like changes the game. It's a fascinating concept, but like in an elimination game, you can't take a guy who's been your best big man and say, we're going to wait till we're down. And even Isaiah Stewart, he has not has as much minutes because he's had to get Paul Reed minutes. And so the question is this: what are you going to do with Jalen Duren?
I don't believe in benching foundation players.
Agree.
I don't believe in that. And this is a sink or swim moment for Jalen Duren for a ton of reasons. Obviously, we've talked a lot about his negotiations coming up this summer. There was a sink or swim moment for him in Game 7 of the first round. Let's be honest. He had a bad first round, and in Game 7, he came through for him. He had 15 and 15. He was the player that we saw all season long. I challenge him. I say, hey, I'm sticking with you. We need you at your best. You know, we can't have you getting beat up and outplayed by two, the Cavs got 2 good bigs, but they're not guys who are known as enforcers. Like, we need you to be an enforcer. So I'm challenging him and I'm sticking with him. And I'm going to go down, there's an old saying, a Texas high school football coach saying, dance with the one who brung you.
Yeah, no one outside Texas ever said that.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Well, listen, I guarantee it was made up by a Texas high school football coach, or at least that's where I first heard it. Dance for the one who brung you.
Sure.
All right, never mind. I'm just going to let that go.
We will let that go. I mean, look, the Pistons need to really ramp up the play better adjustment. Cade Cunningham was much better in Game 5 than he was in the 2 games in Cleveland where he was very bad. I mean, I would still say that the two, if Detroit loses this game or series, you're going to obviously look at the end of Game 5 and you're going to look at the end of Game 3 when Cade Cunningham, a first-team All-NBA player and a top-5 MVP finisher this year, had 3 of the worst turnovers you're ever going to see in a critical 45-second stretch of the game and, frankly, just cost his team the game. Like, if he doesn't make those turnovers, Detroit, I think, wins the game. They had all the momentum at that point. And instead, the game flipped back around the other way. They lose a chance to go up 3-0, and the series probably would have been a sweep then. Like, if they win that game, they go up 3-0, they could have just hammerlocked the Cavs. Instead, they let the Cavs off the mat. It's a game, thinking back on it, it's a game that reminds me a lot of Bucks-Raptors Game 3 in 2019 in Toronto. That game went to overtime. Toronto ends up winning the game after Kyle Lowry fouled out down the stretch of the game. And Milwaukee had a chance to go up 3-0. They let that game get away. The Raptors got back off the mat. They went 4 in a row. They closed the series out in 6 games. That's, I think, what's going to happen here. And the Pistons are going to spend all summer kicking themselves over the end of Game 5 and the end of Game 3 when they very easily could have had the series close out in 5. And instead, now they're in a position where they can lose it in 6.
Let's talk about Cade. He did have 39 points. And he was really on his way because he had made a couple of big shots earlier in the fourth quarter when the Pistons built that 9-point lead. The game was the Cavs had the lead and the Pistons jump up by 9 and Cade led that. But he had 6 turnovers in Game 5. He's had 11 straight games with at least 4 turnovers. So basically the whole playoffs, they played 12 with at least 4. And when your offense doesn't have a massive margin for error, that's extremely painful. And then the other thing is that Kenny Atkinson, and the Cavs defense have super duper ramped up their double teams of Cade Cunningham. That was basically how they got back in the game. They double teamed him on the perimeter and then played zone. Maybe not every possession, but I certainly saw multiple possessions they played zone behind him. And it's basically just daring basically it's a triangle and two, essentially.
With a 2 on him.
Right, exactly. Like a triangle and two with a box and one mindset. And you know, the Pistons generated open shots out of it. It wasn't like the one time he did try to beat it and he got off a halfway decent shot, he missed it. But he generated open shots out of it. But here's the stats. Games 1 through 3, the Cavs double teamed Cade 12 times in the 3 games, 4 times a game. He was 4 of 10 shooting on those possessions. Their team was 4 of 10 on those 12 possessions. Not great. The Cavs would probably take that, and that's probably why in the last 2 games they've double teamed him 33 times.
Mm-hmm.
And on those possessions, they have generated 27 shots, 7 of 20 teams in the fourth quarter.
Well, and some of it was just not like there were times they just missed clean looks out of it.
Correct.
There was also a lot of hesitation, a lot of like, hey, somebody's going to have to shoot the ball type of possessions. Cade's last points in regulation, I had to look at overtime. His last points in regulation, though, was 6:41 remaining, and they'd never figured out how to score without it. He missed a few shots down the stretch. You know, part of this is like Cade's got to find a way to come through as a closer, whether that's, you know, creating a shot for somebody else or, you know, finding a way to get the ball back and be able to get a look for himself. You know, Duncan Robinson was really missed down that stretch just because like they have such little shooting on that roster. He missed the game with a lower back contusion. Dennis Jenkins played well, but you know, would have been nice to have Duncan Robinson spacing on the floor down the stretch. Now you could say, well, it would have given the Cavs a bullseye to go after, but it's going to be a painful film session to watch those last 6.5 minutes of the fourth quarter for the Pistons.
Also, the last 3 games, the Cavs have won, and this is something that I thought JB, in retrospect, I thought that JB maybe could have gone after there have been times where I thought JB has gone after the referees this year where I was like, I don't know what that's accomplishing.
Yeah.
But on this one, and I'm not even talking about the call at the end of regulation, the Cavs have 100 free throws in the last 3 games. The Pistons have 54. It's a 46 differential. And that's a tough situation in a 3-game spread. Now, the Cavs are probably going to have more free throws than the Pistons on an average game because they have more free throw hunters, and the Pistons play physical. But 46 is not going to get it done. And the other thing I'll point out, in addition to Duncan Robinson being a 3-point dominant player for the first 3 games and then being ineffective in Game 4 and missing Game 5, Tobias Harris, who has been an absolute rock offensively for them, last 2 games, 1 of 13 in the second half shooting. So the Pistons are going the wrong direction here. And the question is going to be, what is JB going to do to get them out of it? And it may just be as simply as challenging them. But, you know, when you've lost 3 games in a row and you're the number 1 seed and you're facing elimination, you consider doing some stuff. Then again, they were down 3-1 the last series and won 3 games.
There's also just not a lot of buttons to push, partly by design. I mean, Trajan Langdon didn't make any moves to make the team better at the trade deadline. And, you know, I mean, at the time, I did not love that because I do think there's a good chance this is Detroit's best chance to get through. And I think, I'm not saying they should have traded all their picks and blown everything up, but I do think sometimes there's sort of an assumption that you have infinite time. I know you like to say there's always time, Brian, but there's not actually.
Well, this actually is always time. You're down by 9 with 2.5 minutes.
But I mean, in the
time.
life cycle of a team on the Detroit side, like sometimes you think you're going to have 6 chances to break through and you don't.
That's true.
This might be the best chance Detroit has as a number 1 seed when they were relatively healthy all year to break through and get all the way through, even though they hadn't done it before. And, you know, like Kobe White didn't get traded for very much. I think Kobe White would be helping the Pistons right now. Like, it'd be a pretty welcome addition to their team. So, you know, look, we'll see what happens the rest of the series. But Asar Thompson, we had barely talked about him. He obviously is a terrific defensive player. The offensive problems are a real problem. The Cavs are just not guarding him. It's messing up a lot of what Detroit is doing. You mentioned the end of the game. It's as much not having Duncan Robinson out there as it is having Asar Thompson out there, where they could just go at Asar Thompson or go at him offensively and just say, we're not going to cover you. We're going to play 4-on-5 and everybody else. So it's a tough challenge, but at the end of the day, Detroit is going to need a fantastic Cade Cunningham game. He's got to be the best player on the court. And like you said earlier, McMahon, JB has to go with Jalen Duren and say, you were an All-NBA player this year. You've frankly been the biggest disappointment in the whole playoffs by a country mile. And you've got to be a lot better if we want our season to continue, because if you're not, they're not coming back from Cleveland. Like, that's the only way they're going to get a game 7 is if he looks like Jalen Duren.
Yeah, I don't know that JB needs to tell Jalen Duren how much of a disappointment he's been.
Well,
I think Jalen Duren's probably well aware of that.
Relax. Relax with the wording. The point is he's got to go at him and say, we need you to be the guy you've been all season. Like, whereas
100%.
We need you to play like that.
I think he's got to hype him up. But yes, I agree that he's got to stick with him, and he's got to figure out whatever it is. He's got to figure out a way to get the Jalen Duren that we saw from October through mid-April, and not the guy that we've seen for the last almost month now. You know, the one thing I'm going to disagree with you just on piling on them for not making moves before the deadline, and your point about Kobe White. Okay, that's fair. But in terms of this being their one real swing at it, I can't agree with that when the face of their franchise is 24 years old.
Yeah, I'm not saying it is definitely, but I'm not saying they had to trade 4 first-round picks for people. But like, I would assume who got traded to Minnesota for second-round picks, and Kobe White got traded to Charlotte for second-round picks, and they were involved, by the way, in the Audisumu trade. That's how that they were part of the trade. Like, they could have gotten one of those guys and not given up even a first, and wouldn't have impacted any of their long-term stuff, and they would have had a guy who would fit with their team. They could have signed this summer, and by the way, would potentially be helping them maybe make the NBA Finals this year. That's all I'm saying. Like, there are ways to middle it where they could have been more aggressive to make the team better without sacrificing their future, and by being the most patient possible and essentially just doing a rebuilding team kind of move to move up in the first round to take on money, which is what they did in that trade. Like, if they were going to lose in the first and second round of the playoffs, especially, you're going to look back on that and say that was a missed opportunity to make the team better. And maybe they'll have a great run here where they go to the finals a bunch of times, but they now have to decide what to do with Jalen Duren, pay him this summer. And this has been a very concerning month on that front. And you have to do the same thing with Asar Thompson. And it's been, frankly, a very concerning month on that front, too, because those two guys have shown that while they are talented players, if those are your 3 core players going forward, like, that's going to be a challenge to get where you hope to go with Cade Cunningham.
Situation for several months now to the Thunder situation a couple of years ago. And look, Sam Presti was criticized by some people at our company even, for not making a move to help the Thunder that season. That's when they made the Gordon Hayward trade, which they thought they'd get something from him. He gave them nothing, but they cleared some money. That's also when they facilitated the Mavericks acquisition for Daniel Gafford. The Mavericks went out and got P.J. Washington, who really helped. I mean, basically was critical in beating the Thunder. Got Daniel Gafford with the Thunder's pick. Presti was criticized some, and obviously what he did was he evaluated the roster, saw the holes, acted very aggressively that summer, and the rest is history that's being written right now. I'm not saying that the Pistons are the next dynasty. I'm saying I'm going to delay judgment on their front office's approach. Although what you're saying about being able to get guys who could help for not a major price, that's fair.
By the way, the Cavs have not made it to the Eastern Conference Finals without LeBron since 1992. So that would be a major accomplishment. Obviously, it would be Donovan Mitchell's first ever visit. And, Kenny Atkinson, understanding the moment, immediately came out after the game and said that Game 6 was a must-win for them. And I get why you said that.
Who is your favorite player on the 92 Cavs?
Danny Ferry. They had some of my favorite Cavs ever. Mark Price, Larry Nance, Brad Daugherty. All right. Other game 6 is going to happen on Friday night. Minnesota looks to try to keep their series alive against San Antonio. I got to say, you guys know how impressed I have been with the Spurs. I'm not going to make a prediction. Assuming they get one more win, I don't know, man. I'm so impressed with them. I'm not taking anything off the table. And I remember at mid-season, I was talking about whether the Spurs were good enough if they didn't make a move this year. And I remember when they didn't make a move, I remember saying, I guess they think that this isn't their year. And you corrected me, McMahon, instantaneously. You said, that's not how they're looking at it.
Right.
I remember this. You said they think they can win it. And I was skeptical.
Yeah, I mean, them not making a move was doubling down of, hey, we've got the guys right now who can win it. We don't.
I am watching this roster.
Can I gently push back a little bit? They played Portland in the first round and were down double digits in multiple games. And they did come back and won. Just hold on. They're playing a beaten up Minnesota team. Now, listen, Victor was amazing in game 5 and played great coming off the suspension, and they're up 3-2, and I think they're going to win game 6 and close the series out. I'm only saying that to say that they are about to play a team that is 8-0 in the playoffs and is steamrolling anybody and are the defending champ.
And they will be appropriately favored. What I'm saying is I'm stutter stepping because I'm watching the production.
Of course you're stutter stepping. Of
course you're stutter stepping. USWB interruption brought to you by the Pistons.
Well, I just couldn't help but laugh at I'm not going to make a prediction. Yes, we know you're not going to make a prediction. You're going to say everybody can win. So I just couldn't help but laugh.
All right. Let me give you the numbers of how everybody on the Spurs team is performing in this series. And by the way, I agree Minnesota is banged up. They're also damn good.
Yes, Minnesota's great.
They are really experts at playoff series and playoff games, and they are a hard team to kill.
Yep. The Spurs did everything you would want them to do in game, like we talked about the other day. They did everything you'd want them to do in that game 5. That was an incredibly impressive performance to reestablish control of the series.
Victor's stats are a little bit down because he obviously only played a few minutes in game 3.
This
game
is just
4.
in series or the whole
4.
playoffs?
This is just for this series. Okay? Because I was told that Portland's no good. Just teasing Bontemps. Just relax.
I'm fine.
Wembanyama is averaging 20 points, 13 rebounds, 4 blocks, shooting 51%. Stephon Castle, 18 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, shooting 51%. De'Aaron Fox, 17 points, 4 rebounds, not shooting that great, especially from 3, but still 17 a game. Dylan Harper, rookie, 15 points, 6 rebounds. God, does he rebound for a guard? God, does he go to the basket and look to rebound? Shooting 54%. Again, not so good from three-point range. We talked about the Spurs three-point range. I'm still going. Devin Vassell, 13 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 44%.
Yes, they have good players that are scoring points. Yes.
Keldon Johnson, 11.2 points off the bench, 4 rebounds, 50% from the field. Are you hearing these numbers? Julian Champagnie, 11 points, 6 rebounds, shooting 43%, 34% from 3. Oh my God, they keep coming. I haven't even talked about Harrison Barnes and Luke Cornett yet, who aren't even scoring that well but play important roles. I mean, what a team. What a team.
They're a great team. Yes, they are. They're a very good team. I was only the only thing I was trying to do before was I think all season long, I'm not saying we have really been doing this, but I think all season long people have been trying to find ways to say the Thunder aren't actually all that good. And
yes,
that's not what I'm doing. I'm not talking about the Thunder at all.
Well,
I'm
you kind of are. I would say you are slightly. They should be the prohibitive favorites to win this series.
Okay, But you cannot look
which
Victor
isn't a knock on the
Wembanyama.
Spurs either.
You can't get on a stepladder and look Victor Wembanyama in the eye and tell him that the Thunder should be prohibitive favorites. Now, you could be right.
Victor is a different thing.
What I'm telling you is this. The Spurs are an extremely talented team that will walk the Paycom Center with absolutely zero fear of their opponent.
And they shouldn't have any fear.
Now, they've got to finish Minnesota off, and I agree with Wendy. Anthony Edwards is one of the most ruthless competitors in the league. Hopefully the extra day helps both of his knees because he doesn't have a good knee right now. And hopefully we get a hell of a game 6. But
I think the Spurs are winning this game on Friday. So that's where I'm at on the Spurs, too. I think the Spurs are great.
I mean, it's a 3-2 series, and their 2 wins have both been blowouts. They're the better team. And they will walk into Bricktown believing that they are the better team. So I think it's going to be a heck of a series.
I think it's going to be a great series. I just think.
Well, it's not. Oh, by the way, I'm not counting the Wolves out yet. I'm just talking about.
We've left some wiggle room.
But yes. But I think the Spurs are great. They've had a phenomenal season. They've been better than I think anybody, even including with the Spurs, could have possibly imagined the way the season's gone. They've been unbelievable. And I think it's going to be an awesome series. I just also think that the way the Thunder have played and the way they've been set up coming into this series, like to me, I don't think it's a coin flip series. Doesn't mean the Spurs can't win. The Spurs can win. They showed they could this season. They've got a singular force, the likes of which we really haven't ever seen before. But I'm going to go into it personally, thinking that the defending champions are clear favorites and should win. And it's going to be incredible to watch, and I can't wait to see it. And if the Spurs do win it, which they certainly can, I agree with both of you on that, then if they're healthy, we could be set up for the next decade where they rip off more than 5. Like, that's the kind of thing we're looking at.
Mike Wright